And this is taken from the graduating class of 2020, the ACT profile report. And what this simply shows is the 5-year trend data. The top banner are the percent of students in Arkansas who met benchmarks, and it's broken down by English, math, reading, science, and then met all 4 of those subject areas. And this is students who's took the last test attempt. So if you'll notice in 2020, in the bold at the bottom of this top graph, the students in Arkansas who met all 4 of those in the state, that percent is 15%, and nationally it's at 26. And then when we talk about average ACT scores, in 2016, before we started the all census testing or giving students in grade 11 a free ACT attempt, you'll notice our numbers were lower. And this encompasses starting in 2017 is when we started that all grade 11 test. But our 2020 information is the bold. So our average ACT score in English was an 18.7. Nationally, it was a 19.9. You'll notice math 18.4. Nationally 20.2. Reading 19.4. Nationally 21.2. Science 19.1. Nationally 20.6. And the composite for Arkansas in 2020 was a 19, and nationally was a 20.6. And then again, this bottom just takes these benchmarks of 5-year average scores nationwide and shows you what those are as well. So again, the goal is kind of for you to come up with a game plan and to look at your individual scores of your students in your schools and kind of figure out what you want to do with your data and what your needs are. And I know Missy is on here and she might jump in a little bit too. But, you know, kind of look at where we are as a state nationally, kind of as a whole, and then for you to take that as your context and then kind of roll with it and start taking a deeper dive into your schools and your district's data, coming up with what you're looking at. Are you looking at your curriculum? Are you looking at your grade levels? Are you looking at vertical alignment, horizontal alignment, you know, kind of what your needs are? Are you looking at individual students, kind of deciding what you're wanting to do with your data, pulling your data, coming up with your game plan and what your individual needs are?
Does this data resonate? I know we have some high school counselors on here with us, as well as high school administrators. Does this resonate with y'all? That you might see any similarities or but it's like it's like yeah, Brooke says yes. It's like oh, do I have, can you you know, it's like Alex said, it's, you know, for y'all to have some time and when you can get that valuable time and dig into your ACT results like this and answer those questions about, is it an alignment issue, or is it, you know, curriculum issue, or what is maybe some of the root causes of that.
Hey, Alex, can I say something? This is Julie. If you do not have your school 2020 grad profile report, you know, normally they were sent to you, and that changed about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. So this year, you either have to request through ACT or I can send it to you. So if you've not received that, your report, please just let me know, reach out to me and I'll send it right to you. And of course, in Success and Online Reporting, you have all of this data. It's not put together like you're normally used to seeing with your profile report. I can send you what you're used to seeing, your profile report. And then I also have a table or chart that I can also send that will show this is what it looks like, what I'm used to in my profile report, and this is where I go into success and find those individual pieces. So just let me know or reach out to ACT and we can send that. I just wanted to say that because I know a lot of schools have not, I've had a lot of questions about that and asking, where do I get it? Because we didn't get it this year.
Right. And, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? It's about the long haul, and we have to start taking baby steps and getting there. And we're used to one thing, but we've migrated over to another. So schools are going to have to start doing the work and getting into the system and start pulling that data, because this is the last year that you're going to be able to go into PA Next and get that information. You're going to have to move into that online system. Starting next year, there's not an option, right? We're going to have to get in there. We're going to have to look at it. It's going to look different. We're going to have to get used to it. And that's just where we are, right? So everyone across the state is going to be in the same boat. Everyone's going to have to get used to getting into that system and pulling those reports. What's nice is there's a lot of things that you can do with that data. You can individualize stuff. You can pull things at a district level. There's lots of pieces that you can individualize and customize, but you have to get into the system and start playing with it and deciding what your needs are, what you're wanting to do with it. So I would encourage everybody to start finding time within their day, you know, at some point to do that, because this is the last year that you'll have the PA Next system to do that. You're going to have to start, you know, moving to that online system and deciding what your needs are and what you're wanting to do with it and how you're wanting to customize it. And it's just like with anything new, it's just those baby steps getting used to it. But I would encourage everybody to start that process, because next year everyone's going to be in the same boat. They're going to have to do that.
Would there be any trainings for that, or is it just is it a kind of a situation where it's almost where you just kind of get into it yourself, and the more you get into it, you learn, or is there any formal
It's
training?
both. Yeah, it's both. The more you get into it, the more familiar you'll become with it. And it's new, but yeah, there's going to be more pieces, and ACT will roll out more pieces with it because it's new for everybody.
Right.
But yeah, and this time of year as well, it's busy for all
Mhm.
schools, right?
Yeah.
You know, but as schools get a little more downtime and the school year slows down a little bit and people find time in their schedules, I would encourage people, or if it's next year, you know, and they just don't have the time this year, you know, we understand that, but this will be the last year that they will have those reports in PA Next. They're going to have to look at it next year. So
And I can help with that too, Alex. Anybody that, you know, wants help, it reports, labels, that's a big question I've been getting, where do I print my labels? You feel free to reach out to me as well. I can help you with reports and maneuvering through success.
Okay, that's appreciate that information, because that's needed, very needed information. And kind of moving on with our agenda is Kristi Anderson. I reached out to her, and as the director of instruction at Lake Hamilton School District, and kind of to facilitate a conversation here on, you know, what are some of our state schools doing to help bring these students up above the remediation benchmark, and what are some things, and she had a great thing to share that her district is involved in.
Well, Julie is working with us in partnering together in training some of our teachers in becoming ACT certified educators. And so we have at the junior high level and the high school level, we have content area teachers in math, ELA, science, who are going to be training and trying to reach certification in being one of these educators. And Julie, you can jump in there and talk about it because you know it a lot better than I do. We are just on the verge of starting this. But it's where they learn more about the makeup of the ACT and the ACT not benchmark, but the standards that ACT pull from in creating the test. And also, once they kind of go through that training, then they will be more specific in their training of their content. And so we just felt like when I talked to students, especially some of the students that are in those areas of where they just fall below the benchmark, they just tell me about how nervous they are when they take those tests and how they can't read fast enough to get through the test. And just the uneasiness that they have expressed to me, and also just overall stressed over this whole year. And so I just thought maybe that would ease some of their stress, that they knew that their teachers have been through this and can really reassure them of some strategies and of, things that will help them get through the test. I know a lot of the students I talked to who fell into that category of missing the benchmarks, they had not really participated in any type of prep, even though we offer it to them. It's basically up to them to do that prep. We don't have a class scheduled for that. And so, just trying to think of ways to reassure students and to give teachers some confidence in saying, I know this is part of how they put together the ACT. So just an idea that we're pursuing. And Julie, you can certainly add to that.
Yeah, Kristi, I think you guys have like 21 teachers being certified, a great group. And in fact, 7 out of Jason's building, the junior high Tuesday started their certification. They did the basics course, and I believe Jason has a few more doing the April 14th. And then this summer, they will pick up subject areas. But Kristi is exactly right. It's just another piece. It gives teachers confidence. It's a national certification and recognition. They go through it. It's rigorous, and teachers take a certification test at the end of the day. It's an ACT test, like Kristi said. So on what they've learned in that, and then they are certified and receive a certification, a badge. And it's in like I said, the content areas. It's knowing the content, the strategies, what questions are asked for a reading. What do the passages look like? What's the vocabulary? Helping helping students to annotate, all of that and much, much more. And so it's just, we have several educators across the state that are doing that and have done that. And then we have several schools that are doing that. And with the funding from the rescue plan funding, it's just a great piece for your teachers if you're looking for that rich professional development with a certification to help grow your students' ACT scores. And then again, it helps the students to feel more confident. And another thing is, it does level that playing field, like Kristi said. With test prep, I mean, both of my boys spent quite a bit of money on private tutoring, and just what a great piece for your students when all students have a ACT certified educator teacher in their classroom. It's just all students benefit from that. So if you more information on that as well, you can certainly give me a call or email me. I'd be glad to help.
What are some of the other schools? I see Bryant is on here, and what are the other schools? I didn't have that chat list memorized. Is there anything, I can just start with Brooke and put her on the spot, but anything that you've heard, anything that your district is doing to bump these kids up and that are on just that?
So yeah, we have a couple of things that we've been doing. We've had ACT prep courses that are in the schedule that kids can sign up for. After reviewing the data that just recently came in, we started looking at how many of those kids are enrolled, and then what was the growth piece of them being in the classes. And so moving forward, COVID kind of threw us for a loop. We have time built in our schedule for enrichment and remediation. We call it buzz time. And so that's going to start back next year to where kids that maybe don't have the flexibility already in their schedule, they can't, afford to take that elective, they'll have ACT prep classes, just a flexible time. And so we'll have those rotating throughout the year. That way we can get several kids in and out as the ACT different dates are approaching, get them some training. We're also doing the ACT certified educator training with ours. I don't know if the principals have talked to them yet, but I know some, I think, are wanting to do that. And then one thing we're going to push out next year is, we're really big on tracking our CFAs and remediating and CSAs with all of that. And so next year we're adding the ACT composite scores to our whole student data tracking. And so when teachers meet in their PLCs, they're going to see which students were scoring where on English or reading, and they're going to have lessons built into the curriculum to help remediate that too.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And they are the Hornets, so that explains the buzz time. At first I thought buzz, and then I thought, yep, that's the Hornets.
I do need to clarify, our mascot's the Buzz the Hornet.
And now the buzz time is when is that scheduled, did you say? I'm sorry.
So we have it, the way our week is set up is we call it Bryant time and buzz time. And so on Tuesdays and Thursdays is buzz time. And so we use it for remediation and enrichment. And then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are Bryant time. And we use that for advisory lessons, building life skills to get the kids ready for college, how to fill out scholarships, things like that.
Love that.
Yeah, it's been great. We've missed it this year. COVID, among other things, it's just made everything a little bit more complicated. But the kids, it's really good for them, especially for us. One of the reasons we implemented it, we stole it from, the gurus who say to put that in, and it's just been really nice. Time that we don't have in the day or the staffing even, this gives us a chance to kind of spread our resources out.
Excellent. Any other, there's Benito. Benito, remind me where you're from. Nancy, if there's anything y'all would share from your school, so if you, or just be thinking about that, then you can add it to the chat or be happy to hear that. But oh yeah, and Nancy is with Brinkley. She's with the Brinkley High School, and she's a brand new counselor. I see. Yeah, gotcha. So she's picking up a lot of good information and learning a lot with this session. So that's a big part of why we do these things also. And then of course our colleges need to play a part in this also. Once they get the kids and things like that. So I was going to see if Dr. Graves-Scott could facilitate this or start the conversation off with anything that they're doing at UCA that might be, I'm sure that might be, is inspiring.
Sure, I'd be happy to talk about, what's going on at UCA. One of the things that we're working really hard with is our teacher preparation programs to make sure that our candidates are highly successful even in their first years of teaching, as they're preparing these high school students to be successful on the ACT test. And really in general, it's less about the ACT test and it's more about just being successful. We know that the ACT is just one measure. So we all spend time in our secondary programs looking at particular outcomes for making sure that we're meeting the standards for us, standards for teaching, but also preparing our students to meet the standards for their high school classes that they're going to be teaching. We're also trying to be really cognizant about infusing, at least this has been this year, really high pedagogy in online instruction. And we're an Apple Distinguished school, so we're putting a lot of time and effort in that particular area. And another huge effort that we're doing right now is educational equity, because we recognize that many of these children, I say children, high school students, who are struggling with the ACT are the students who are first generation, the students who are students of color, the students who come from low socioeconomic backgrounds. And we're really, really trying to focus in that particular area. We got a Winthrop Rockefeller grant 2 years ago, and our faculty went through 6 days of intensive training on race and equity and looking at policies and practices and how we can support students, and in not only our college students, but K-12 students. So that's the effort that we've really made. And we believe that if we can make an effort and we can make a difference in those kids who traditionally do not score well on tests, that would make a big difference for the state.
Oh, Missy's coming back on. Sorry, just. And I'm glad that you talked about the teacher education program, how this helps, because I know that when Missy brought this idea up to the ERZ directors about facilitating and having these conversations like this with all kinds of stakeholders and partners, one of the things that we discussed early on was that the need for this for our students who are taking the praxis, taking their math exam in the writing part, and some of them struggling on the math part because maybe it'd been a while since since they had that particular math in school, and so just something that's really needed in that. I know we have HSU, and then I'm so glad we have ASU Mid-South with Lori on here. Is there anything that would be, that we would you would like to share with us that would benefit us, that some things y'all are doing to help your students?
Well, excuse me. ASU has lifted that requirement of the ACT or Praxis now for admission into the screening program. So that was a big relief, a stressor to students, because for many that was their stopping point to becoming a teacher. They could not make it to past that. And after many attempts, I know those who would, years past, students that took the writing several times and missed it by 2 points. But fortunately, she's gone on. She is working in schools now at a different position than, what we think of a classroom teacher. I'm not sure what it is, but so I was glad to see that requirement lifted. I know that kind of goes against high school counselors of students having to take that, but for me and my students, the teacher education program, it was a relief to many of them, and they'll, hopefully be able to go on and become that classroom teacher, which so many, I hate to say it, just like across the state, we're not able to do that, fulfill that because of that ACT requirement or the praxis requirement. So that has going to boost our numbers and hopefully help with the teacher shortage across the state. I think that is probably what the reasoning behind that. Students, so it's going to allow more students to enter the teacher education programs. Of course, they still have to take praxis too when the time comes for that, but the ACT or praxis requirement's been lifted now.
So what about, can I ask a question? Okay, so if you've lifted that requirement, then how are you deciding about students who need remediation courses?
Good question. I'm not sure. That was all I know. Was told that we no longer have to, or it's no longer required for screening. So that was an ASU decision. That's our partnership, our partner in our 2+2 agreement. So
did they just start on the regular pathway then? And
they do. Well, they still at our 2-year level. Of course, they have their developmental courses. Their, if they need it, foundations of reading, writing, math. Before they get into the college level. But as far as screening into the teacher education program, they don't have to take ACT or praxis.
So we actually decided to phase ours out starting in this fall. So what we're doing right now is actually reevaluating our transition points to ensure rigor at the beginning and then all the way through the program. So, that one stopping point that we once had here at HSU, now we're looking at, okay, how do we make sure that they're ready to go on to the next level?
Right.
So we're really looking at those progressions, probably similar to what you're doing right now too. I think one of the most interesting things we're involved in right now is the disciplinary literacy effort. It's the online course that's being provided through DESE. And a lot of our professors, specifically content professors, are involved in that. And so I think, from a literacy standpoint, I think that's going to be really helpful because it's going to show them how they can integrate that into their instruction and their methods courses. And then the students that they have can then do the same thing whenever they get out in the field. So, as far as what we're doing at this moment, I think that's one of the most interesting things.
And Jill, that might be a good topic of conversation one day as well. What are we doing at the 2-year level?
Yes,
to
ma'am.
ensure that that rigor is there, and kind of almost a pre-screening. I know that we couldn't, keep them from going on the screen, but what can we do in our 2-year courses to ensure that they're ready to go on to that, their junior and senior level courses?
I think that's exactly would be a great topic, because what are the strategies y'all are incorporating to make sure that they are ready to go on? And if you, also in the chat now, UCA is also is in the same thing. And I wonder, what do we know? Are all the educator preparation programs in the state? Are they all? What do you know?
It's been a change in the CAPE standards. So originally CAPE said that we had to use a nationally normed assessment. And so they've now taken those out of the new standards. And at a couple of, I guess it was a couple of months ago when the deans all found it out, we were at a dean's meeting and we all made the determination that we would move in that direction. So I think most of the teacher prep programs are moving in that direction.
And I would say too, it's not to get it confused with the admission requirements for the university as well, because, as far as the ACT, it's still required for admission to our university. But as far as teacher prep, that's a different story. We don't require the ACT or the praxis starting this fall, at least for us.
And I'd add to that there is a national trend to move away from ACT as an admission requirement to colleges and universities. So we're seeing that as something that is being less important. And that I say that the test is less important, but certainly the student outcomes are still very, very important. And we want to make sure that our students in Arkansas are as competitive nationally.
Are you still using the ACT for scholarship application?
We are putting more weight on GPA
Mm-hmm.
and less weight on ACT.
Yeah, I would say there's a similar trend here.
Okay.
I do know just from the state perspective that the state lottery scholarships are still using ACT, but to their point, I mean, it's across the board in Arkansas with our higher ed, all of higher ed, looking at, kind of how to evaluate incoming students from kind of a different lens.
Okay, now, what I want to do now is kind of move into, I had reached out to Julie Sanders and to kind of talk about kind of our big conversation, so to speak, but that we have on the results of our survey. It was just overwhelmingly that the counselors and so forth were interested in more ideas about testing, getting rid of testing anxiety as much as you can. So what are things to do to help? And so I reached out to Julie, and I thought that she'd be a great one to start the ball off on that with us. And Julie, I thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Before I kind of give thoughts from ACT and some ideas, suggestions, Kristi's already touched on one thing, but I kind of wanted to hear from you guys. you know, testing anxiety is huge. It really is. And especially like Vicki was saying, for our students to stay competitive nationally in seeking those you know, jobs, that careers, that post-secondary, you know, whatever that looks like for them. And so it's a lot of pressure on students. And I know with my own 2 boys, I've got a senior getting ready to graduate and a senior in college. And so it's just a very stressful time. So anybody doing anything, you know, to address that, or within their school system, starting, you know, at a young age, all the way through, I'd kind of like to hear some thoughts and share with the group if anybody has something they're doing. Well, Brooke, I think you mentioned your buzz. I mean, that's a piece.
I'll jump in. Yeah, I think with our kids that, you know, we kind of take on the motto, if, you know, frequency is best. And so having them comfortable with the style of test questions has probably been the most beneficial. And just what it looks like, what a question, when you see a certain style question, how to pick that apart and pick out the best answer. And so I know a lot of our teachers incorporate that just into their instructional practices. And then we also do ACT boot camps, you know, just throughout whenever the time's about to come, just to get them ready. And so it's a tough one to kind of address because different kids have different, you know, different levels of anxiety. Some are, it's no big deal. And then some, it's a whole nother level.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
You know, I wonder if, you know, sometimes just the way you even, when they get in the room, the actual testing room, and the way the lighting is done, or even like soft music, or just, I don't know, whether it's like little classical music, you know, very soft. And of course, I don't even know if that's allowed or not. Well, I've never seen it done when I've proctored or when I actually took it 100 years ago. But I don't know if someone, you know, if the ambiance of the room, have there any studies done on that or anything like that that would be, you know, scents in the room, if you did certain candles to, you know, that, you know, whether it's lavender or, you know, there's some scents like that will calm people. So I don't know if that's, you know, something that anyone has ever tried to see if it helps, you know, relax the mood a little bit. And you know, I know there's a lot of work that can be done pre-testing day, but my mind all of a sudden went to, okay, the testing day, how could the room setup help? So I don't know.
Well, with ACT, it's pretty secure. And so there are certain things that are not allowed. And room setup and all of that. And of course, that's again with, you know, you have those guidelines for the test proctor and all of that. I think, well, I know, Brooke, you pretty much hit the key of, in order to help with this test anxiety, lots of scholarship deadlines. I've been working with lots of students over the past several months, trying to meet those scholarship deadlines. So getting into ACT test on a national test day, besides, you know, what they're doing. And so exposure, having our kids practice over and over. And what does that look like when we say that? And so ACT recommends, you know, basically what you said, Brooke, is giving the students that early practice. And that can look in various ways. I will tell you, a lot of schools across the state use the pre-ACT 8, pre-ACT 9, pre-ACT 10. Lake Hamilton, Kristi, they have used the pre-ACT the last 2 years for their 9th and 10th graders. Arkadelphia High School has used it for the past 3 years. Great results. And it's just a practice tool. It's a tool to help students and teachers know exactly, it's an ACT test. It doesn't have the security of the ACT, but it's a practice and getting them to know and familiar. And then you get your reports back and you sit down in your PLCs and you start examining, okay, where are our students at? Where do they need to go? What was Julie's area of weakness and what does she need to work on? So that's a critical piece. Also, part of the ACE training, but just in general, any teacher can go out onto ACT's website and understand the blueprints of the ACT. You know, teaching your kids, okay, these are the subject areas. You know, overall, our kids, I've said this before and you've heard me say this, will look at their composite score, but they don't look at each subject area score many times and say, oh, I made a 19. Okay, well, what areas were you strongest in and what areas do you need to grow in? That's another critical piece. And so helping students understand the math, 60 minutes, 60 questions. The first 20 consist of this, the next 20, the last 20. 60% of the math is more about that preparing for higher math. Modeling, they're less than 25% of the questions. Helping our students understand that. Time management. Kristi, when I came and spoke several times with Donald and Laura, we're looking at those pre-ACT results. What were we noticing? Well, a lot of students' time management. There were several questions you could see that start tapering off and the last few were not answered. So it's teaching our students, okay, math 60 minutes, you know, what are those, make sure we answer everything, but how do we time ourselves? So I think, again, those are critical pieces that help our students understand. I also wanted to stress this. So, you know, with our state testing going on with our juniors, MyACT, all of the students in our state created MyACT accounts. MyACT was rolled out at the end of July, and it took the place of where they normally had signed up. And in MyACT, it's just full of where they register for a test, where they receive their national scores, their state scores. They send score reports to colleges. But what was known as ACT Academy, that has changed that platform, and it all rolled into MyACT, and it's free for the student. So they can go into their MyACT account and practice, take full ACT test, take part of an ACT test. It gives them a score. It routes a prescription for the student. They can take it as many times as they need to. And so again, it's that exposure so they know exactly when they walk in on that Saturday national test. And as my senior one time took it at a place where it was white walls, no windows, it was freezing in there. And he walked out of there and said, that's the worst score I know. And sure enough, when he got a score back, it was. And so it's being able to, whatever the room situation is, but to understand, okay, I know this test and I know what's expected and I know what to do. And I think those are key pieces to helping our students with that anxiety. And I have all of this that I can share with you, but one more thing I did want to share too. You know, on ACT site, you can go to and just ACT.org, and up in the little magnifying glass, you can put in ACT technical manual. That's where it breaks everything down into the subject areas, what % of questions from each subject area. Also, there are curriculum review worksheets that I've worked with a lot of schools with. It's taking those college and career readiness standards that Kristi had said and looking at them and where do we put that? Where do we teach that in our curriculum, our pacing guide? Oh, this is where we address it. Well, what does that question look like? And there are sample questions with those curriculum review worksheets, all right there at ACT.org. And then the final thing I will say for students that's been very helpful that I've given to a lot of students, on ACT site, there are free ebooks. And there's one called Being Prepared and Confident for the ACT. It's free. They sign up, the ebook is sent to them. And it has test taking tips. It breaks down the ACT. It tells them how many questions are on there. It tells them what scores, that if they do this, then this score. And so it's just very helpful in letting a student know and a parent know, hey, this is what is expected. So all of these pieces, I think, just are critical for us as educators. And I've seen a lot of, not only in the subject area classroom, but a lot of our schools have advisory classes starting in 7th grade, 8th grade and on. And so a lot of those pieces of working towards the ACT already at that earlier age. So when the kids take it, and a lot of our students take it as a junior for the first time, they feel confident in it. Anything else or any questions on that or thoughts?
Well, and this is such a real problem. My husband was not a good test taker, you know, when he was in school, and just I'm glad now that we have, you know, strategies and things like that to really better address some of those issues, and just, you know, I tell you one thing we can do, be great to do, is I want to make sure that, especially the folks on here, we all have our emails, and then as we go on, as time goes on during the next few weeks and during the summer and into the fall, if there's an idea that comes up to you, you know, just share it out. Say, you know, keep that little listserv and whatever, and or that might be an old computer term. I don't know if they use the word listserv or not, but anymore. But to let them, you know, say, hey, I just ran across this idea and so forth like that. And Edie, I was just gonna, are there, I don't know, from the State Department perspective, from DESE's perspective, or even Missy and Edie, what are your thoughts about, you know, where we're going, and well, also just kind of, what are some of the ways that DESE has planned or probably it's already doing, I'm not saying plan, because already doing to you know, work on help with the improving ACT scores and things like that, or just it really is, and I hate to keep saying like improve scores, because, you know, kids, we all know kids are more than scores, you know, but to make sure our kids are better prepared for.
Yeah, well, first off, it's great to see everybody this morning, and we're, you know, excited to be a part of this, and appreciate y'all's time, and of course, you know, the amazing perspective that everybody brings. I love that it's K-12 and higher ed together at the same table talking about this stuff. And I will say that in the area where I'm located, which is Educator Effectiveness, I'll speak to that, and then I'll let Missy jump in with, you know, kind of the broader strokes and everything that she has going on as well. But just from Educator Effectiveness, we are currently working with districts and included higher ed in the discussion, as far as some ACT prep programs that are going to be beginning this summer. And they are currently working with a small group of folks to kind of develop what that's going to look like. And they're going to be funded with some ESSER funds that are coming because of COVID to help with that learning loss. So, you know, that's going to be incorporated into this ACT prep. And it's going to be available for upcoming juniors and upcoming seniors in the summertime. But it's going to be more of some content areas. So it's going to be some praxis assessment, and then along with that will be some ACT. We're just briefly touching on the ACT piece of it, because in Educator Effectiveness, our primary responsibility is, you know, looking at educator effectiveness, which includes our praxis, right? So we're concentrating on the content areas in praxis, and you can just see how that kind of bleeds down into ACT content areas. So kind of getting all of that feedback from K-12 and higher ed, where those focuses need to be, and then making sure that not only, kind of what Julie talked about this morning with test anxiety and test taking skills, that's going to be a piece of it, because for many students, that is what we know is their roadblock or their hurdle. And then also some really specific content area test prep. So depending on, especially for our secondary ed prep students, which, not everybody's aware of, but those that are in higher ed are acutely aware of the fact that our secondary educators are removed from our ed prep programs. So it's a problem. I'll just speak for everyone. It is definitely a problem. And I see the heads nodding from my ed prep friends. It's an issue. So, we're trying to capture that too, because there is zero control over that in our ed prep programs. And so it is a gigantic gap. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what we're looking at to try and make sure at least that praxis part, and then those content areas, which again kind of bleed into a little bit of ACT type prep. But really our focus is on that praxis piece. So that is going to be rolling out this summer to capture all of those folks that might be either on our, they may be teaching right now with waivers because they were unable to pass their praxis. Those are the folks that are being targeted to offer support specifically. And then another subset is that group of secondary, middle level, or secondary, especially secondary, that are not covered by our EPPs because they've been pulled out and are in those content areas on our college campuses. And then, as far as other things coming down the pike, we've got a few things we're working on. We're really working to make sure that the things that our EPPs are doing well are highlighted at a state level, because we have got some great things happening across our state. And it's really important that those things are, that everybody knows about them, frankly, and that, we do have some amazing ed prep programs that are turning out amazing teacher candidates, and that needs to be celebrated. And, we could all tweak some things. There's all things, there are always new things coming out that we need to be working with. But from our perspective right now, that's kind of where our focus is. And then Missy, I know, has the whole other end of the spectrum with K-12 and ACT and all of that. And she's honestly the reason, we're here today. She was, wanting the ERZs to have these collaboratives, and it's really exciting to see some of this discussion. And I just appreciate Missy because she's the one that brought me into the conversation. So with that, thank y'all. And I'm turning it over to Missy.
Thank you, Edie.
Thank you.
Really, I mean, as far as, of course, I'm going to piggyback off some of the things. Matter of fact, I'm going to get with Edie afterwards and figure out what they're doing with the ACT prep. Really, with these conversations, we are looking for that information. And I think at the very beginning, I told you, you drive this conversation and you drive this collaboration. So when you start bringing your data to the table and you start identifying, hey, these are the trends, whether you're in higher ed or K-12, we can help you from the department, especially with the ESSER funds that are coming down. We can help you supporting that in the strategies of, how to address those gaps in learning, how to address, and what do we do in August for these students, and what do we do in September, and what do we do in October, instead of, what do we do? It's time for them to take the test. How do we prep them a few weeks ahead of time? So looking at some of those strategies along the way. And so I'm really here just as a listening partner, because we've got money to spend with the ACT prep that we want to look at. And the other thing too is we've got, we're looking at on K6 with the Office of ERZs, we're looking at the tutorial piece of just building, you know, tutorial, recovering some of that lost learning, and, you know, possibly doing some test taking strategies with them as well, because even though, you know, you're not prepping them for a test, there's a lot of intentionality in the reading of the questions that you can use in anything. So we've got a lot going on, and we're just looking for strategies, and we know that you all in the field are the best to bring those strategies to us. So I'm here just listening as we bring evidence to the table and say, hey, this is what we've identified as our gap, and we need some support in finding that. And then hopefully I can help with that piece of it too, and brainstorm with Edie and Alex on what they've got going on. And
Well, I think, I'm sure a lot of schools are doing this, but I know that Brooke referenced in their PLC time that they are bringing in their ACT data and digging into that. And so I do think, though, as more schools are getting true PLCs implemented, that I think that's going to be a game changer to, you know, because you can't do that work in isolation. It really needs to be part of a team. And so I was refreshed when I heard Brooke say that. But, you know, I feel like there, you know, certainly are a lot of schools that are doing that as well. But just to, you know, we want to, you know, share that. And then also, you know, what the work that we have a lot of teachers going through the highly reliability teacher certification program. And I think through time, as when more and more teachers go through that, and it's an intentional course, you know, offerings, you know, through a period of time that just makes them better instructors on their content and all different kinds of instructional strategies. And so anyway, I would think that would certainly help too. But yeah, what we want to do is, like Missy said, this our next meeting, or Julie can even guide me through this, is, I don't know if the summers are good, but well, when is a really good time to, like, when the latest ACT results come out, you know, to give schools time to look at their data, and then have a come to the table type discussion like this. I wonder,
Well,
The state data won't be in until this summer.
okay,
And
that's what
so
I was
we'll have
trying
to give schools time to get it and then pull it out if you're talking about the state data.
yeah. I mean, in Success National, when a student takes on the national, all of that data is rolling in continuously. But Alex is right. It would be summer before everyone would have access, full access to their state.
Okay. Something we'll keep in mind to, you know, maybe and Candace may have an idea too. And I'm so happy that, you know, the co-ops are part of this too. And that I think it's great to pull them in and kind of see when, because the co-ops even know even better than we do, like when a good time would be to have another, you know, kind of a work day like this, or a conversation like this with their data, to really delve into, you know, see what's working, analyze what's working and what's not. So, but I did record this. I did record this meeting. If that was okay, I probably should ask before I did. But there was some that they really wanted to be on this and couldn't, because we're in the testing season as we speak. So I know that's why a lot we're missing. But I will be glad to share that out to you, and then you can share it out to, if you had a colleague or that might want to see bits and pieces of this. I think a lot of helpful information was shared, and so I will get that sent out to everybody. But I appreciate that, and all the stakeholders here on with us, and y'all just have a great afternoon, and a great weekend coming up. Hope we have some good weather.
It's good to see you
Thank
guys.
you.
Uh-huh.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Alex and Julie. Thank you so much.